Hello, and welcome to another edition of Learn IT with Mr. P. This is a lessons that are actually brought right from my classroom, and this was prompted by a question I had given a little video about recently. About a student asked, like, what is the best programming language to learn? And so I want to give a little bit of a survey of the types of programming languages that I've used and some general advice for anybody who's learning to learn about programming. So, the first thing I want to tell you is that there's really no wrong language to learn because algorithms, variables, loops, flow controls, all those concepts are going to be common to all programming languages. And I have a couple of images here that I grabbed from the web showing different icons of all kinds of different programming languages, whether they are Java or Swift or Kotlin or other languages. They're all going to have similar control structures. We're all going to use variables, functions, and the like. So there's really no wrong language to start learning how to do computer programming. But I will say there might be a wrong language. And I'll say this, that when you're starting out in programming, you want to make sure that the skills that you have, that you're comfortable enough to start being ready to learn. In other words, I wouldn't want someone to take their very first programming language to be something like Java, which we give in the AP course. Now, some people have taken it as a very first computer programming language, but it's a little bit difficult to really dump in and understand what's going on with a more complex object-oriented programming language if you do not have foundational skills. Also, appropriately for your maturity. A kid who's in second or third grade is not the same as an 11th grader who's in high school. I want to make this point, and I think it's very important, that your first language should be something that makes you feel successful right away. In other words, if you're doing something like writing a program that says hello world, which is a very common thing to do with your first programming assignment, you should feel that you can control the programming language and actually have it produce a result. As a teacher, I've always found that my students do better right away when they feel that, hey, I can do this. That this mystery of programming languages and this complexities of all these different things I have to learn, if I can actually do something useful and make this program respond in a way that I want it to, the feeling of accomplishment, the feeling that they can control the computer, that's a great first step. So your first language has to be something that's going to make you feel successful right away. So a lot of people, what they start with is called block-based languages. When I say block-based, it's like Legos. Each color Lego block has a different function. I'm going to show you right now something called Scratch, which is from MIT. There's even a Scratch Junior for the very youngest children. Pre-K kids or kindergarten students can use this. And use a sprite, that little character in the upper right-hand side, the little cat, he's a sprite, is an icon. And these blue blocks you see on the left allow you to move the character a certain number of steps, rotate it, move left, move right, go to an XY coordinate. And in the middle, you'll see there's a tutorial. This is right when you first go to scratch at mit.edu. You can go right in and start making the character move around the screen. You'll see buttons on the left that have different colors, some for sound, some for movement, some for other types of functions, variables and the like. But you can get something done on the computer very, very rapidly. What I also like about Scratch, it's great for storytelling. In other words, you're not going to use it for doing high-end mathematical calculations, but if you want to have an animation, a game, you want to take pictures of yourself, your voice recorded, and make it part of the action in the game, in the software, you can do that. It's one of those low floor, high ceilings. You can get started very easily, very quickly with Scratch. Here's a program on the left side. You can see there's different colored blocks all pushed together. And here's a little sprite to the right with some of the actions that it replies to that person. You can have multiple sprites. Again, a block-based language like Scratch, very popular. I've used it with my high school students, and it's a really good place to start. What I've been doing more lately in terms of block-based language is something from Microsoft called MakeCode. And the reason that I've been using MakeCode a lot is that it pairs well with what's called the BBC Microbit. That's that little device you see on the right-hand side. It's a microcomputer about the size of a pack of matches. It has LEDs, it has a sound chip, It has little buttons and switches on it. It controls robots. You can hook up to sensors. It has a G-force. It has a radio transmission. It has a lot of flexibility for 15, $20 for a BBC microbit kit. You can program it with any computer. You can cable to it via USB. You can use Bluetooth to connect to it. I've connected it to my phone. I've done it with tablets. Very versatile. And again, you see right here on the start page of Microsoft English MakeCode, there's different languages, of course, if you want to do a different language, with tutorials. So I've had students use it for robotics. I've had students use it for games. I've had use the radio transmission to send signals from one microbit to another. Great device, great way to start in computer science and learning about what's called physical computing. We're actually not just controlling software on the screen, but you're actually controlling a piece of hardware. The piece of hardware in this case is the BBC microbit. Again, a nice versatile product to get started with computing. So from the block-based languages, people then normally transition to what's called a text-based language. And these are languages that you might hear more traditional programming where you type in a command, like print. All right? One of the program languages that I start with is something called Python. It's an interpreted language, not a compiled language. And it's named after the British comedy troupe Monty Python. Monty Python, the Holy Grail. There's a picture here of Eric Idle. He is one of the original members of Monty Python. And the Python text editing program, which is named after him, is called Idle. I have a little program here that I created for my students who are working in a health class. It calculates BMI, 5 or 6 lines. I noticed that I spelled the word calculate wrong. So it's real world stuff. But this is an example of a Python program to calculate BMI. Very simple. Two variables, pounds and height, with a calculation of BMI 703 times the number of pounds divided by height squared, height times height. And it gives you the BMI. Very simple program. But it's important to understand that when I do programming assignments, it's not programming for the sake of programming. I like giving assignments that are related to what they're learning in other content areas. So I've written Python programs with my students that do geometry calculations, height and width, area, volume. I've had students do things for their physics class, doing chemistry calculations like the ideal gas laws. Python is a great general purpose language. A lot of people use it for CSP, which is the Computer Science Principles AP, which is agnostic. You can use any programming language for CSP. I use it here. There's a Finch robot, which comes out of the folks at Carnegie Mellon. It's a robot that's designed to be easy to use for young kids. I've used it in high school as well. And this is what's called the Racehorse Project. Kids were using Linux and Python to control the robot along a set course in the classroom. So again, it's very versatile programming language. It's available on every platform, Windows, Mac. You can use virtual machines to run it. So I really like Python as a great text-based language to feel very successful. And I've used it again in multiple content areas. In my cybersecurity class, I've been teaching a programming language called Bash, or the Born Again Shell. Not Born Again, B-O-R-N, nothing to do with religious here. It just has to be named after Born Again Shell. A shell program is what you're going to find to run most of your computers that are running GNU Linux or Unix systems. You can actually get the Linux terminal for Windows. You can actually use ZSH, which is similar to it on the Mac OS if you go to terminal. So the Born Again Shell is a scripting program, very common for use to automate tasks on a computer system. Again, variables, loops, all those kinds of control structures you're going to find in any modern programming language is available in Bash. I use it for my cybersecurity classes because when you're using GNU Linux, there are a lot of utilities that are already built into the operating system, like grep, like ls, which lists the files, awk, sed, and many, many others. And you can build some very powerful tools very simply using a Bash script. So my colleague who's using Java for his class is teaching the kids how to write a text processing program. I can do the same thing with a bash script and not have to worry about doing the algorithmics of thinking about how you can do the text processing. It's already built in. So I love using bash. I'm going to give another lecture, another presentation on that in the next few days. Hopefully I'll get that up and running. So again, there are other languages that I've used. It's not just that I've taught bash, I've taught Python, I've taught Scratch and MakeCode. Other languages that I've taught in my classroom, and this is not an exhaustive list by any means, because other teachers who teach computer science are going to use their own languages. Like I don't teach Swift because I don't teach on the Mac operating system for my students. But I have taught JavaScript. JavaScript was part of the national pilot that's code.org used for their AP CSP curriculum. I was part of the national pilot for that. CSP is an AP level course. It does not require to use any particular language. It's agnostic in that way. So people can use any language they want to get AP credit as long as you meet the criteria for the College Board's thing. I've done it with JavaScript. Basic beginner's all-purpose symbolic instruction code, I believe, and that's something I remember going back to when I my first PC, because it all came with a built-in basic interpreter. When I was co-teaching robotics with a professional engineer who was on the staff, they were using the basic programming language for the robotics, and I was a special ed inclusion teacher, so I was working with those students using BASIC. I also use C++, or a subset of C++, for the Arduino-based parallax robots that I had. When I say a subset, it was C++ programming language, but not all the options that C++ had. It was more geared specifically to running the Arduino-based microcontrollers that we had in our parallax robots. So again, it's very common to see multiple programming languages being used because each language is going to have its own particular use and function. I'm going to teach bash scripting because I want my kids to learn how to use a Linux box. I'm going to teach C++ because that's the Arduino is going to require them to use. So I hope that you found this interesting. Please like and subscribe, leave your comments, ask questions, and I'll be able to address them in a future lesson. Thank you very much. Mr. P signing off.